Swimming in prosexuals. 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 Swimming in prosexuals.
Oh, fuck you!
You know, the one good thing to come from the deadly pandemic is that the associated collapse of our entire civilization freed up time for me to give those funny-looking Japanese cartoons a go. Yes, at the shockingly late age of Redacted, I got into anime.
You giant weeb.
And, surprise surprise, one of the first series I sampled and which pulled me in back in 2020 was Cowboy Bebop. Countless shikashis and wari-waris later, the 90s genre-bending sci-fi masterpiece remains one of my absolute favourites, and for sure my favourite space anime. Well... So when Netflix recently released its live-action version, I was really psyched to not watch it. Another creatively pointless adaptation of a beloved anime from the visibly woke streaming service that brought us Death Note 2017. Another anything from Hollywood. Stuff that for a lark. But since ER has evidently vanished into the ether, and given the current absolute state of YouTube, who can blame him, I felt strangely compelled to provide a brief yet considered analysis of this latest rancid reimagining myself. Yep, spoiler alert, Cowboy Bebop 2021 is total arse.
Shameful display!
It's one of the worst things I've ever seen, and I've seen Star Trek Picard. Now, of course, these days, a show or film being bad, terrible even, isn't exactly noteworthy. But this is almost literally unwatchable, to the extent that even professional critics, or the majority of them anyway, couldn't bring themselves to pretend to like it. And worse still, far worse, it's a goddamn deliberate desecration of the original. The anime? Well, its director described it as a new genre itself, and as grandiose as that sounds, he wasn't far off. As Jordan Peterson might say, it's a bloody work of art. If I had to distill it down to a single word, that word would be soul. It's not just a show about a ragtag bunch of bounty hunters in space, though on that level alone it's pretty awesome. It's a show about what it is to be human, about the transient beauty and tragedy of life. Seriously. Those bounty hunters, or cowboys, are a family of outcasts, secretly lonely, haunted by the past and yearning for some meaning or connection. And we quickly become invested in their adventures because they, their world, and the stuff surrounding that, the eclectic soundtrack, the unforgettable opening and closing sequences, the next episode promos voiced by the characters, are all suffused with charm and cool. Seriously, if you haven't, just watch the anime. Subbed or dubbed, you're gonna love it. Cowboy Bebop 2021 is Cowboy Bebop in name only. Nearly everything is wrong! Beginning with all of the characters. You know, just that minor element. In the anime, Spike, our lead protagonist, is tall, young, handsome and mysterious. Typically affecting a bored demeanour, he's far more likely to be seen nursing a pensive cigarette than trading quips, let alone bearing his soul. And despite his lean physique and rather reckless attitude,
I'm not exactly the delicate, cautious type.
Or because of those things, he's a force to be reckoned with. In the remake, Spike is played by John Cho, the guy who played Harold, a put-upon beta nerd in the Harold and Kumar films. A guy who's pushing 50, is shorter than me, and I'm not 6 foot, and, I'm sorry, is maybe a 5 at best. Perfect casting! And he's been reinterpreted as a garrulous, duplicitous, submissive, overly emotional, unfunny, God, we'll get to the comedy, loser who's pathetically enthralled to some nightclub trollop with a nice voice. And who's way more into noodles than smokes. And who loves wedding receptions. And whose shoes aren't clownish enough. And who's really called Fearless. Looking real tough with that cat tree, Harold. Jet, his muscular partner, is, in the anime, another strong, oft-silent type, misfit and badass. An ex-cop with a strict moral code, He's a stubborn, cultured, dependable bear of a man whose gruff mannerisms belie an inner gentleness, and whose ethnicity appears to be either Asian or Pacific Islander. In the remake, inevitably, he's been blacked, because hey, Jet Black, right?
Do I look pale or what?
You're always pale.
Not anymore! Like Spike, he's also become Captain Talkie, and his favourite subject is his daughter, Kimmy. Did you know he has a daughter named Kimmy?
Kimmy has a birthday coming up, and you wouldn't believe how much a kid's doll costs.
My daughter's turning 8, and I can't afford to buy her a present. Little girl's toy.
Yeah, Kimmy!
You don't want my daughter to have a birthday?
I swear this doll, she's mocking. You know how many toy stores there are in Tharsis?
Now I'm doomed to show up at Kimmy's birthday without the
Maybe
one...
Kimmy's birthday won't be a total disaster. You know I can count on my one good hand how many times I've seen Kimmy in the last 7 years. Yeah, Kimmy! Speaking of names, listen, I picked one. Kimmy. Chip's grounded after Kimmy's recital. She just turned 8. Shit!
What?
Kimmy's recital's about to start. She's got the lead.
Yeah, Kimmy! Right when I need the dough to buy my daughter.
I can afford a goddamn walking
70
Sally.
toy stores and this goddamn...
Give me a minute. It's Kimmy. They took her.
Who?
Kimmy! Yeah, Kimmy!
Meanwhile, again like Spike, his attitudes have been corrected. For instance, whereas OG Jet knows the score re-broads,
Betrayal may come easily to women, but men live by iron codes of honor. Women are hopeless. They don't work on reason.
New Jet is petrified of offending any female, including this tedious hag, who naturally is desperate to receive his jet stream. Can you imagine if the sexes were reversed? And while Jet 1.0 is second only to this guy when it comes to maintenance and repairs,
I don't need instructions.
Jet Blacked is effortlessly out-engineered by this condescending wine-aunt. Plus, he can't say escape pod.
Escape pod. Escape pod. Escape pod. Escape pod.
Which brings us to Faye. Oh boy. 90s Faye is, despite being only 2D, arguably one of the all-time great femme fatales. In her early 20s, biologically speaking, and smoking hot, she's a vain gambler and con artist who uses her looks and other resources to get her way and survive. Yet beneath the tough, sexy exterior is a lost soul who's simultaneously afraid to put down roots and crying out for companionship, maybe love.
Belonging is the very best thing there is.
Netflix Faye, by contrast, is a snarky, not that attractive, overdressed 34-year-old Mexifornian thunder cunt. No! This genial bundle of female entitlement enjoys addressing her male crewmates as Dick, Dickwad, Dickhead or Dickhole, swiftly establishes her position as the Bebop's alpha dog,
Stick with me, kid. You might learn a thing or two.
and does a great line in I'm So Hilarious faces with the optional Admiral Feminist head thrust. Displaying zero interest, feigned or real, in any actual man, the writers were so invested in this change they turned her sort of ex into a fake mommy, she predictably gets all flustered by the aforementioned wine aunt's crude come-ons, which commence within seconds of their meeting. Insta-lesby friends! Aw, insta-lesby friendship ended. And yeah, she's overdressed. See, the show's costume designer may have said, as a woman, I felt resistant to the idea of the lead female character being gratuitous or overtly sexualised. But I'd have to say, as a man, that this drab outfit does fuck all for me. And when your character is meant to be the seducer and manipulator of men, that makes no sense.
That doesn't make sense.
You can't have a femme fatale who's not the least bit fatale.
Hey, fuck you.
Oh, and she's a shit liar too. Such manipulation. And then there's Ed. Or rather, there isn't. One of the 4 main characters in the anime, she curiously doesn't get a look in the remake until right at the end of the last episode, where, incidentally, she upstages Spike as a final fuck you to him. But this near non-appearance is actually a good thing, because of course, being a tomboy, they had to trans her, so she's played by some unknown actress whose pronouns are they, them. Okay, admittedly, Ed was originally conceived as a boy, and she does look pretty androgynous. So, while annoying, and they know it's annoying, hence I suspect why they only dared stick her in for 1 minute, this off-screen business doesn't necessarily translate into on-screen oofs. Except, even with just that minute, they managed to screw her up. Though I appreciate the difficulty in portraying this almost alien character, Tread is more theatre brat than hyperactive space cadet. And how come it was okay to whiten her down to Jenny Nicholson in a snowstorm levels?
Tasty.
Oh, that's right, top of the stack. Ein, the final member of the Bebop crew, is around for much longer, but that's really all he is, around. Just another box they had to check. Apart from when they briefly turn him into a spy cam / projector for can't be asked to do a rewrite reasons.
The dog plays movies. From his eyes.
Yeah, we got it.
From his
Okay.
Shoots video.
Thanks! Conversely, Vicious, the shadowy main antagonist, and Julia, the elusive woman caught between him and Spike, get way more screen time than in the anime. Which, before we even get to what they've done to them, is in itself a huge mistake. You know how Jaws famously benefited from mechanical problems forcing Spielberg to not actually show the shark for most of the film? Cowboy Bebop 2021 does the exact opposite, parading Vicious and Julia in front of us in every single episode. So stupid. And more is infinitely less when it comes to these grotesque parodies. Vicious? More like ludicrous. What's that you say? The bad guy? Well, obviously he has to be played by a Colonel Tavington-esque white Englishman.
Of course.
And let's stick him in a silly wig. And give him a lousy ring instead of an actual bird. And, like everyone save for the dog, have him just keep talking and talking, making him about as threatening as a kid who keeps telling you he's going to fight you. And make him frequently lose his temper, even though anime Vicious was unemotional, nay inscrutable, to the end. And defer to his wife, because she's the brains. Christ, the only thing vicious about Netflicious is how viciously he's been raped. And yeah, Julia's now his wife, because they've altered the story, much to its detriment. Plus, of course, she's also nothing like the original character. Anime Julia is set apart from the cold, unforgiving world she inhabits, a splash of colour on a grey canvas, figuratively and literally. Existing only in Spike's memory for most of the series, she's an enigmatic ideal of a woman, and his soulmate.
She was the part of me I'd lost somewhere along the way.
Julia is just another modern Hollywood female in a show full of them. Sleazy rather than sweet, devoid of any ethereal qualities, she fits right into her degenerate surroundings. Indeed, as mentioned, she's heavily involved in Vicious's dealings. And she's surely no one's ideal, unless you're a self-hating feminist, male or otherwise. Given to nagging and, thanks to the obligatory tat and some unfortunate makeup and wardrobe choices, looking like a whore, she winds up betraying both Vicious and Spike because love is a patriarchal delusion and Yas Queen slay. Even in fake VR form, she manages to be a spiteful bitch. As for the rest, well, it doesn't get any better. New Annie, Nanny, is, would you believe, arrogant and annoying, and like Jet has also been blacked, because clearly this was the best actress for the role.
They told me you were dead. Acting!
Gren, the soulful sax player, war veteran and magnificent breast haver, whose final journey induces major feels, has been reduced to a fabulous nothing. And among the remaining minor characters, new and reimagined, no one stands out in a positive way. Lin and Shin? How's about a dumb guy and a woman who are just there, and overshadowed by a heroic diversity bint? Mao Yenrai? A diversity bint blessed with perpetual smug face and who, like Nanny, is a super-empowered businesswoman. Marvellous she casts metal in her foundry better than any man. Another rival capo to whom Vicious must grovel? Netflix presents a foppish black plantation owner with a castration fetish. See, the Red Dragon Crime Syndicate is now just the Syndicate, a non-specific equal opportunities criminal organisation, because clearly it would be racist to depict an all-Asian outfit. though it's somehow not racist to have the leaders wear wizened old Asian guy masks, so the show can still be all, remember this? Shit, maybe that is racist. Better throw in punished mafia Hitler to balance things out. There you go. Now, you might be thinking that since I've already spent half of my runtime just on the characters, the other aspects of the show aren't quite so egregious. Alas, you are mistaken. We're talking failure and ruination across the board, so hold on tight to your waifu pillows as we embark on a whistle-stop tour of everything else they buggered up. Choo-choo, motherfuckers. It's not for anyone. Allow me to explain. Because Hollywood is no longer capable of innovation, there's nothing that's genuinely new here, narratively speaking, aside from a few lazy, offensively stupid tweaks. So those who've seen the anime will know where things are going 99% of the time. And those who haven't will be at best confused and at worst annoyed by the remake's tendency to just throw stuff from the original at you willy-nilly, assuming the response will always be a smile of recognition. Which leaves no one who could possibly find this an enjoyable watch, unless they're retarded. Given that this is a remake, there aren't enough episodes. The anime consists of 26 sessions, each clocking in at under 25 minutes. This allows for a wide variety of individual stories, with time enough for them to breathe but not too much time. The remake has 10 sessions, which is simply insufficient to encompass all that is Cowboy Bebop. Hence many of those stories are missing, and the writers resort to packing too many disparate threads into nearly every episode, meaning setups are truncated and we're constantly switching gears.
What do you got?
I think I might know where I grew up.
Can it keep? And he drops the Batman into the sinkhole.
So the show's rushed, but it's also padded. For some reason, those 10 episodes range in length from around 40 to 50 minutes. And rather than use all that time to flesh things out and smooth things over, the writers, incredibly, opt to fill it with, well, filler. Scenes that basically exist to give characters more scenes. Almost everything is stretched painfully thin, including the Vicious and Julia plotline. Think I'm exaggerating? Spike and Faye literally spend an entire episode just hanging around. And I don't mean off-screen while we follow events elsewhere, I mean we're made to watch them hanging around. That episode, and this is on a streaming service remember, is 45 minutes long. What the hell? Because this is a modern Hollywood product, suspension of disbelief breaking bullshit abounds. Whether or not you want to use the term plot holes, there are countless instances of the writers putting their desire to keep moving towards the next checkpoint ahead of things making any sense. A to B with no rewrites, whatever the cost. 3 quick examples will have to suffice. The face changer, a device/blatant narrative crutch introduced in the show, is employed without regard for logic or even consistency. First, it's called a face changer, even though it alters the appearance of your entire body, and can leave a scar on your wrist. Second, we're told it's totally obsolete tech, only used by hookers, despite its obvious utility for everyone from criminals to Halloween partygoers to trannies, and the fact that only Jet, conveniently, appears to possess the widget necessary to deactivate it. Third, it's somehow forgotten when the tedious hag says this.
No sign of them ever existing. Anywhere. No. Who has that kind of access or money for this level of invisibility?
I don't know. Anyone with enough cash to visit a cheap brothel? Fourth, in the same episode, it's shown to be super not obsolete when Vicious uses one to fool all of his rivals, who I guess had never heard of such a thing. Somehow.
Good job.
Serious wounds mean nothing, except when the show decides otherwise. Granted, in the anime, Spike in particular takes a lot of punishment, but you feel every one of those injuries. In the remake, characters can be brutally stabbed or shot and just carry on with their day, which makes this, ironically, way more cartoonish and infinitely less stakesy. Faye disappears for 2 episodes, without Spike or Jet even commenting on it, because hey, she takes off several times in the anime, and it makes sense there, so whatever. And when she reappears, having magically divined their location, they don't ask her where she went. Because we saw her at a table with the show's wimpy white version of Bacchus, so it doesn't look like Cowboy Bebop. Sure, they reproduced a handful of elements from the original, the absolute bare minimum they could get away with, but beyond those, this just isn't the same universe. Hell, it's barely a universe, by which I mean 99% of the time this doesn't appear to be a space show. Virtually all of the action takes place on the ground, in laughably terrestrial settings.
Two-dimensional thinking.
The series was filmed on location in New Zealand, and oh, you can tell. The most they ever do to try and disguise this is CGI a giant Jupiter or whatever in the obviously Terran sky, or shove a spacecraft in the background, and for spacecraft read African helicopter. Not that our heroes are actually equipped to operate off-world, whatever world that may be. Faye is conveniently shipless for much of the show, having flown her first, apparently unarmed vehicle for all of 5 minutes. And Jet is without the hammerhead, because why would a space bounty hunter require anything besides a mothership and a motorised tricycle? In space! And it appears he even loses the trike, as the next episode sees him and Spike stuck on a bus, which seemed like the fastest way to put distance between us and the docks. Space! It's suffocatingly woke, obviously. In the anime, yes, you'll find lots of diversity, but that's genuine diversity. The Bebop crew encounter all kinds of people leading all kinds of lives, many of whom, like themselves, exist either on the fringes of society or outside it entirely.
There's no government, no nationality, no taxes, and no cops. They see it as total freedom.
In the remake, tedious, oppressive, current year leftism is unconsciously embraced throughout the entire solar system. As if A, we'll ever get off this godforsaken rock without first slaying the beast, and B, if we somehow ever did, those who then found themselves beyond the reach of the pronoun brigade wouldn't immediately ditch that shit. And of course, since the wokeness is piped directly from the writer's brains, it pervades and drives everything. If it wasn't already clear, this is a show in which women are masculine and constantly poning everyone, and men, especially straight white men, are routinely depicted as weak, dumb and submissive, if not literal incels. It's positively dripping with the writer's collective misandry, envy and self-loathing.
First orgasm ever. Good on me.
While it inadvertently highlights the freedoms we've lost since the 90s. And the atmosphere, Jesus. Nearly every frame fairly reeks of this ugly, faux edgy, hipster douchey Weimar tier degeneracy. Seriously, if this show is any indication of the current state of New Zealand, that whole damn country needs to be hosed down. The dialogue is terrible. On the nose, infantile, profanity-laden, naturally, studded with meaningless references to people and events only familiar to the characters.
The diamond thief we bagged down in Alva City.
Stella the fella's blowtorch.
Cosmonaut.
Nest of gun dogs.
And, as I believe we've established, overlong. When they're shooting for comedy, which is a distressingly large amount of the time, it's fucking excruciating. Yes, I know, humour is subjective, blah blah, but trust me, these writers are as close to objectively unfunny as it's possible to be. There are jokes that don't work but are presented as if they do.
Actually, it comes naturally, unlike your arm.
That would make sense if Jet had a metal cock and he'd said cock.
Keep your eye on the ball.
Hey, I'm not Woodcock, pal.
That would sort of make sense if he'd lost a testicle. There are jokes that consist of a character mentioning something again and again, like that's automatically amusing.
Shower, bath, shower. Shower, bath, shower. Shower, bath, shower.
Shower, bath, shower. Shower, bath, shower.
And there are exchanges about pooing. bewilderingly frequent exchanges about pooing, to the point where I wondered if my nephew took a pass at the scripts, except even he's probably grown out of that now. I just crude attempts at scatological humour in Cowboy Bebop. Why? Why? The only two moments that might raise a smile are when they casually reveal the outcome of an entire episode, since even the writers don't care.
Hey, whatever happened to that unkillable super assassin?
Yeah, I killed him.
Oh, nice.
And when, showing a dazzling lack of self-awareness, these talentless Hollywood hacks ask the audience, are you living in the real world? In addition to the standard, remember this, the show keeps dropping way too obvious references to other fictional works. Just like the anime does, right? Except that does it subtly, and it deserves to be mentioned in the same breath as the things it's referencing. This does not. Tonally, there are issues even beyond those caused by the disjointed narratives.
Fallout from an epic cryo nap. Total amnesia.
Yes, cue the feel sorry for me piano just after your cunty, shallow female lead discusses orgasms with some rando fuck. Join us next time for more wacky hijinks. And finally, well, not actually, but I need to wrap things up at some point, finally, the show gouges out, sets fire to and urinates on the emotional core of the anime, Spike's relationship with Julia, even before her stupid heel turn at the end. A tragic, life-defining love affair, a meeting of two kindred souls surrounded by darkness, is transformed into a pitiful case of beta orbiting, followed by an empty soft-focus shag, with the mismatched shaggers capitalising on the husband being preoccupied with torturing a man to death. Yeah. Is there anything to like? Well, the show's version of Brain Scratch, in which Spike gets trapped in a VR loop, is at least somewhat original, even though it's still derivative of everything from Star Trek to Red Dwarf to Groundhog Day, and there's no logic to the proceedings whatsoever. And the episode in which we're suddenly in the past likewise benefits from being different, as well as from the writers, for once, focusing on a single story. But we're merely talking really, really shit as opposed to really, really, really shit. There's the music, I guess, though none of the new stuff is really memorable, despite Yoko Kanno's involvement. The constant attempts at comedy necessitate that much of it be of the generic, upbeat, isn't this fun? Aren't you having fun? Variety, which doesn't help. Other than that, I can only think of the CGI, which is undeniably good. But if all you require of your entertainment is pretty lights, you might as well stare at a Christmas tree. Worst moment? Now there's a hard-fought battle. You might think it'd be when they do a cringe-inducingly awful rhyme to help them remember a plan with only 3 stages which they never get to enact, just because someone wanted to throw in a Dirty Dozen reference. Or when Vicious talks about shaving his balls. I forgot that priceless bit of comedy. Or, surely, when Faye saves the day by firing through the windows of a cathedral, screaming, "Welcome to the ouch, motherfuckers." But for me, it has to be when Fearless, when Fearless murders an innocent girl. As always with these remakes, the cast and crew waxed on about their deep and abiding respect for the source material, and how the whole thing is a love letter to the original. And since we can't look inside their heads and prove they felt or intended otherwise, I guess that's checkmate, racists. Except we can see what they did. And after watching this rubbish, no one with an IQ above that of a shrub and who's being honest is going to believe them. These arseholes didn't just try and fail. No one is that incompetent. Any random group of Cowboy Bebop fans grabbed off the street and forced to write an adaptation could have done better than this. As I said at the beginning, this was deliberate. They turned a soulful jewel of an anime into yet another soulless, joyless, brainless, offensive vehicle for their propaganda. If you've finished the original and still want more, I can heartily recommend the movie made shortly afterwards, basically an extended missing chapter in which we get to join the crew for one more adventure. As far as I'm concerned, that's the only coda to the series there is or ever needs to be. You're gonna carry that weight? How's about you bear a modicum of shame for subjecting us to this sacrilegious shite, and carry my groceries out to the car? Chuffing bang!
Pasty.
Shower bath, shower bath, shower. Oh shit!
Escape pod.
Fuck you!
You have to love the ground that you're then going to tread on.
Justice